Let's be real, being the nice one sounds noble until it quietly wrecks your soul. You show up for everyone, keep the peace, swallow your truth, and smile through it all. But inside, you're exhausted, resentful, maybe even lost. Here's the kicker: most people won't see it. Because the spiritual trap of being too nice looks a lot like love, until you realize you've been bleeding boundaries just to feel worthy. This isn't about fixing your attitude, it's about reclaiming your energy. Because when kindness is mistaken for weakness, and spiritual manipulation creeps in disguised as compassion, you need more than good vibes. You need spiritual self-protection, discernment in relationships, and the courage to say no without guilt. If you're done being exploited for being kind, tired of spiritual exhaustion, and ready to reclaim your power with grace, stick around. This might just be the wake-up call your soul's been craving. The hidden cost of nice person syndrome. Most people don't realize that being too nice often isn't kindness. It's fear in disguise. Fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of not being spiritual enough. That's how the nice person syndrome sneaks in. It tells you that love means overextending, overgiving, and under-boundaried behavior. But here's the truth. When you constantly say yes to others, you're often saying no to yourself, and that's where the spiritual drain begins. Imagine someone volunteering for every church event, always offering a shoulder, always on call for others' crises. Meanwhile, their own life is quietly falling apart. That's not divine service. That's a slow self-erasure. Spiritual boundaries aren't a lack of love. They're love with structure. When kindness turns into self-sacrifice, it becomes toxic kindness, a subtle form of spiritual burnout. It leaves you wide open for spiritual manipulation and codependent dynamics. But no one talks about this because we're taught that being good means being endlessly available. The pressure to prove your heart is pure keeps you trapped in a cycle where saying no feels like a sin. That's not just people-pleasing, it's spiritual distortion. And unless you learn to protect your energy and stop being too nice, you'll keep paying a high price for other people's comfort. So, how do you break free? Saying no without guilt isn't selfish, it's sacred. It's an act of spiritual empowerment, not rebellion. Yet, for those trapped in the nice person identity, saying no can feel like breaking some cosmic law of kindness. But boundaries aren't walls, they're clarity. They're how you protect your peace, your purpose, and the energy you're here to steward. Even Jesus said no, repeatedly. Let that sink in. It's fascinating how this plays out in different cultures. In some parts of the world, saying no is considered rude, almost taboo, while in others, it's respected as a sign of self-awareness. No matter where you're watching from, the struggle is real. Maybe you've felt that tension too. Drop a comment and let me know where you're tuning in from. I'd love to see how this topic resonates around the world. Now take the story of someone who's constantly there for everyone, but secretly dreads every favor asked. They're not giving from love, they're giving from depletion. That's not generosity, that's spiritual exhaustion. And if this is speaking to you so far, take a second to hit like, it tells me you're here for this kind of soul-level growth. And hey, if you're not already subscribed, this is your space too. Emotional boundaries in spirituality aren't just for empaths and introverts. They're vital for anyone on a path of truth. If you don't set them, others will decide who you get to be. And when your soul is buried under obligation and resentment, your spiritual growth suffocates. Saying no is how you make room for a deeper yes. to your calling, your healing, your joy. And here's where things really start to shift. Reclaiming your power without losing your heart. Many kind souls worry that if they stop being too nice, they'll become cold or unloving. But true spiritual maturity isn't about shrinking your kindness. It's about refining it. When you learn to set boundaries with love, you're not shutting people out. You're inviting healthier relationships in. This is the kind of spiritual discernment that protects your energy without hardening your heart. Picture this. Someone who used to say yes to everything now pauses and asks, "Does this align with my peace?" They're not rude, just rooted. And that shift, subtle as it is, changes everything. Reclaiming your power doesn't mean being harsh. It means being honest. It's how you start healing emotional wounds spiritually, not by abandoning kindness, but by anchoring it in truth. This is where people-pleaser healing becomes real transformation. You stop letting guilt run the show and start leading with intention. You realize that spiritual growth and boundaries go hand in hand, that love without limits isn't divine, it's dangerous. And once you see the red flags of spiritual abuse or manipulation, you'll never unsee them. But here's the beautiful part. The more you protect your soul, the more clearly your purpose begins to speak. Here's something worth reflecting on. How many pieces of yourself have you given away just to keep the peace? How many yeses have cost you your joy, your rest, your spirit? Because the truth is, being too nice isn't a virtue when it leads to spiritual exhaustion. It's not holy to betray your own soul for someone else's comfort. That's not love. That's a silent form of self-abandonment. But now you know better. You've learned how spiritual self-protection, emotional boundaries, and discernment in relationships aren't luxuries, they're lifelines. The next move is yours. What boundary will you set today? Where have you been too nice for too long? And how will you begin to reclaim your power without losing your heart? Let's talk in the comments. Your story might be the mirror someone else needs to see their own. If this message stirred something in you, go ahead and hit that like button. It helps this reach more people who are quietly struggling. And make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications, because we've got so much more to uncover about spiritual awakening, healing, and empowerment in a world that often misunderstands softness.